This is the Discovery Files podcast from the U.S. National Science Foundation. I'm Kinsey Snowden. The world of artificial intelligence is changing the way we live, work, and think. This new frontier is also shifting the world of scientific research and has led the National Science Foundation to launch a pilot program called the National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource, or NARE. It is a vision for a shared national research infrastructure for responsible discovery and innovation in AI. Joining us today is Tess deBlanc-Knowles, the Special Assistant on AI to the National Science Foundation Director. Hi, Tess. Thank you for joining us today. So, how do we develop safe and responsible AI?
The concepts of responsible and trustworthy AI are very much evolving, and these concepts are often paired when folks talk about, how do we move forward towards a more responsible AI future. And when you look to the AI risk management framework that was developed by the National Institute for Standards and Technology, or NIST, that framework defines responsible AI in terms of the processes for aligning in the development, design, and use of an AI system with its intended aims and kind of the values of those who are developing the systems. And the framework really emphasizes social responsibility, human centricity, and sustainability in terms of those characteristics of a responsible AI development process. And so what that means for the research community is the consideration of and documentation of the potential impacts of the research or the outputs of that research on kind of a broader societal context, as well as integration of active risk management in that research really earlier in the design process of the research and of the proposal. And then when you turn to trustworthy AI, the NIST risk management framework defines that in terms of its characteristics. So trustworthy AI can be characterized as valid and reliable, safe, secure, transparent, privacy enhancing, fair with bias managed. And so when we look to advance development of responsible and trustworthy AI, it should reflect those kind of baseline characteristics of what we mean by a trustworthy AI system.
So, what kind of guardrails are being introduced to AI projects?
So we're seeing the advancement across the AI development community to align their research and development processes with these kind of evolving concepts of responsible and trustworthy AI in kind of two different ways, kind of the technical side and the advancement of norms. On the technical side, generative AI models are being built so that they're trained on which responses are appropriate and which are inappropriate. The outputs of the systems don't spit out outputs that are inappropriate. There are cases also on the technical side where you can kind of formally code in a logical notation that says, this type of output is quote unquote unsafe, and the system will not put out that type of output. On the norm side, you're seeing this kind of in a range of different ways. The G7, all nations agreed to a code of conduct for AI developers and researchers that sets out, a set of norms for the community as they pursue AI research and development to do so in a responsible way. You also see across AI conferences that all the leading conferences are requiring researchers to essentially document the potential impacts of their research and consider the societal consequences in their research and identify how they're managing that. And then we also see kind of a growing set of toolkits that are enabling researchers to really document the data that's used, how their models were developed, the processes for developing those models, really kind of setting the foundation for more transparency in the broader development environment.
Can you tell me more about the National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Pilot?
So the NARE pilot is one of NSF's flagship efforts in the AI space. We were tasked to take it on in the administration's recent executive order on AI that came out last October. The pilot is a first step in realizing a concept that has been under development for a couple of years now, which is really for a national infrastructure that would connect America's research community with the needed computational, data, model, and really importantly, training resources that are needed to fuel AI research and development. And this is needed because there's a growing resource divide between researchers in the private sector who have access to these kind of very large amounts of computational resources and data that are needed to pursue the cutting edge of AI. And then researchers in academia and also small businesses who just don't have access to that same level of resourcing. And so in the pilot, NSF has partnered with 12 other federal agencies, as well as 26 non-governmental partners to provide a diverse set of these type of resources, from computational credits to data sets to some of the most advanced models, and making more of these resources available to the broader research community. And the intent for this pilot is really to help us kind of pilot how, in a more full-scale manner, we would start to allocate these type of resources and manage them with the research community. And because we're taking this consortium approach with the pilot, we also have an opportunity, given the diversity of the resources that are being brought together in the pilot, is really kind of understand which resources are best meeting the needs of the research community and which pathways to access those resources and kind of training frameworks are being most helpful to the community. So we have a lot of opportunity to really learn from this initial pilot.
So what does the NAIR pilot act as a proof of concept for?
It's a proof of concept for that full-scale NAIR, which would be a truly national shared infrastructure that would be accessible to researchers across the country. In the full-scale NAIR, researchers would access a diverse set of federated resources, so still kind of in those categories of computational resources, data sets, software, and training through an integrated portal. And that portal would also include, user support, kind of community development opportunities, and then training as well. And of course, in the full-scale NAIR, we'd be able to serve a much broader swath of the research community than we can right now through that initial kind of small-scale pilot.
What are some of the challenges with educating the public about AI?
From my perspective, the challenges in educating the public around AI really come down to hype. And I think that kind of goes in both ways in terms of hype around what today's AI systems can do, which I think is often overstated or kind of perceived to be more advanced than they actually are, as well as hype in the terms of really the fear around future systems and the impact that they can have on jobs or humanity. And I think moving forward, kind of both of those extremes point to the fact that we need to kind of build AI literacy really across the country and at all different ages, really just kind of inculcating a basic understanding of what AI systems are, how they're built, and really importantly, how people can understand the outputs of the systems and when they should and shouldn't trust the outputs of the systems in various scenarios.
How is AI being used for workforce development?
As with kind of many applications of advanced AI, we're still in the early stages of really exploring, what can be this transformative impact of AI in scenarios like workforce development. There are some really exciting kind of promising applications of training for workers in high-risk industries, where you can use an AI system to kind of simulate a training scenario that's a safety critical training scenario, so they can gain those skills before they're actually put in the real world training context. So really kind of like increasing the safety of that whole training pipeline. In another sense, in terms of kind of online education, one of NSF's National AI Research Institutes is the National Institute for Adult Learning and Online Education. And they are really pushing forward on developing capabilities for, personalized and efficient online learning that's AI driven. And you can imagine that as these capabilities mature, you can see their application across, many different domains in terms of a company training their own workforce, someone pursuing reskilling opportunities, and having these AI systems being able to kind of personalize the curricula to the learner who's going through the process.
How is AI advancing materials design?
AI in the kind of material design and discovery context is one of these great examples of really the potential of AI to accelerate the discovery and innovation cycle. And so in the scenario of AI and materials design and discovery, a machine learning model can help a researcher predict essentially the qualities of the material that they're looking for. And so a model can essentially help narrow down that space for the researcher to then synthesize and experiment with a new material. So, in the past, this was a really laborious and kind of time-intensive process where a scientist would, slightly tweak an existing known material or, combine two existing known materials, synthesize it, experiment with it, go back to the drawing board. But the AI model can essentially help predict characteristics of new materials. So it's narrowing down that zone of promising experiments for the researchers. And you can even also kind of take the next step and go towards reverse engineering the process, where a researcher can define upfront, here are the characteristics I want a new material to meet. And then a machine learning model can then generate a set of promising options that can then be synthesized and experimented on further.
How is AI helping researchers discover new medicines faster?
This is another case like new materials where there's a lot of promise there for the application of AI to really accelerate this process of drug discovery and development of new therapeutics. Again, we're in the early stages of this, but there's a lot of promise there. So, for example, a machine learning model can identify or even design a therapeutic to focus on kind of a specific protein or target in the body. We also see scientists using AI techniques to essentially mine and connect the kind of vast trove of scientific literature that is out there to identify, what are the most promising targets to focus on when developing a new therapeutic for an existing disease. We also see scenarios where researchers are using AI to model how molecules interact with the body, to say, okay, maybe we've identified a promising molecule. Let's model how it might interact with a protein in the body and see if there is promise there in terms of targeting the right target that we focused on. All of these approaches help accelerate that discovery pipeline. Of course, when it comes to drugs, there's still the next step of that long path of a clinical trial. But implementing these techniques can really shorten and accelerate that initial preclinical phase of the process and also lower the cost that can hopefully then, put more promising drugs into the clinical pipeline.
Special thanks to Tess deBlanc-Knowles. For the Discovery Files, I'm Kinsey Snowden. Please subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And if you like our program, share with a friend and consider leaving a review. Discover how the U.S. National Science Foundation is advancing research at nsf.gov.